My name is Elazar Barkan. I'm the co-director of the Human Rights Program at SIPA here, and I have a distinct pleasure to introduce to you today Professor Taner Akcam, who is visiting us to talk about a topic that is both immensely significant and not infrequently very controversial. Let me first say that history as a contemporary topic, as a questions of national identity, has become, over the last decade, 2 decades, very central in international politics. And as it became such crucial in international politics, it is both a projector and an example of the way in which nations negotiate their identities around controversial topics of the past. Turkey has an honorable place in this new arena. But Turkey is not alone. The same situation applies in many other countries where things and deeds of the past have become very crucial as part of issues of human rights, but not exclusively of human rights, in contemporary topics, in contemporary politics. Japan and China, countries in Eastern Europe, countries in Africa, when we encounter the horrific genocides in the 90s, both in primarily in Rwanda, but also the ethnic cleansing in Bosnia and in the former Yugoslavia. All of those issues involve memories of histories and the way that those histories are interpreted, implemented, manipulated in contemporary culture, in contemporary politics. So, as we are in a habit of saying, it is terrible if we leave history only to the historians. It is crucial for us to engage it as matters of policy, as matter of politics. However, saying that historical events and historical crimes or historical gross violations of human rights are a matter of importance for contemporary politics doesn't for a moment suggest that it doesn't need, or it only multiplies the importance that that has to do with good historical work. And that is where I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing Taner Akcam. Taner has been at the forefront of writing on Turkish history and Ottoman history and the questions of history in Turkey, in modern Turkey, and its responsibility and the role with regard to the Armenian genocide during World War I. This question for Turkey is both a historical question, but even more importantly, it is crucial in its process of democratization, modernization, and among other things, the question, in general, it's international politics, but even more so specifically with regard to the accession process to the EU. All of these issues, particularly since the current government in the last few years, is very central in the contemporary politics in Turkey. We have all mourned the murder of Hrant Dink, which was very much part of that struggle between nationalism and identity and human rights in Turkey only a couple of months ago. And Hrant Dink, and I've known Taner for several years now, and I've met him with Dink, Mr. Dink, at least several times in different conferences in which we participated. With the work around the work of attempts to bring reconciliation, to use that not as a matter of indictment, not a matter of creating or fomenting further conflict, but rather as reconciliation between victims and the state, between Armenians and Turkey. So I think it is within this context that Taner's work is very crucial. He's been really the first that has brought this, the terminology of genocide to from the Turkish perspective, to be related to the events of World War I. He has written extensively on that. He's been a human rights activist since his student days, and as you can see, that's been a while ago. And has been working in Germany for about 3 decades almost, and has been in this country for the last 6 or 7 years. He's done many publications. I'm not going to read to you all of them. His topic, what I do want to emphasize is that all of his 11 books are scholarly. He has not written, although oftentimes he does write in sort of to the wider public. Taner is foremost an excellent historian. I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to teach his books in classes that I teach. And today he's going to talk about the last book that was very widely and favorably reviewed. If anybody had any criticism, is that it was too scholarly. But had a was widely reviewed in the English press, including the New Yorker, which for some of us is sort of the hallmark. And we will talk today about this book, which is called A Shameful Act, the Armenian Genocide and the Question of Turkish Responsibility. For those of you who have not seen it, this is it here. Taner, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Elazar, for that kind introduction. And thanks all the organizers for inviting me here, especially Petros. Thank you very much for all your efforts. It's a pleasure to share with you my new book, A Shameful Act. What I'm going to do is following. I will give a short summary of different topics that I deal with in my book, and then the third part will be a separate part, and I will deal with a different topic, which has very relevance for today's discussions also, what I call denial as a security concept. I will try to explain and discuss one aspect of Turkish history, why it is so difficult for us Turks or for Turkey to deal with its own past, and I will concentrate on one part of it. First of all, some small points about my book. The first idea that I have is that each nation group should deal with its own human rights abuses. This is the basic idea when I wrote this book. Because national memory is highly selective. Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, Iraq, Syria, indeed, all countries established on Ottoman soil remember their histories as a series of expulsions and massacres inflicted on them by the others. If you read all the entire books of these nations, you will read this history. They were massacred, expulsed, sent away, deported by others. Turkey, likewise, remembers massacres of Muslims by Armenians, Greeks, Bulgarians, or other ethnic groups. As a rule, all communities, whether national, religious, or cultural, tend to remember the suffering they have endured. They do not remember the wrongs they themselves have inflicted. Turkey does not remember the suffering that Muslims inflicted on Christians, in particular the Armenian genocide.